right, Randy Manning here, managing partner at Ramos Law. We're going to do another verdict breakdown. We have Sophia Ortiz here today, a fantastic young attorney who's going to talk a little bit about her first trial. It was Creech.
Creech v. Cole-Hayes, Ralph Cole-Hayes.
Well, why don't you frame the case for us? You know, what kind of case was it? What happened? What were the injuries?
So this was an auto crash. It happened out in Monte Vista, Colorado, where Trisha Creech lives. She was riding in the front passenger seat of her husband's truck. They were on their way to New Mexico on a road trip with their granddaughter who was sitting in the back. And you know, they're on a rural Colorado highway. It's a 2-lane highway, pretty narrow, pretty flat. And they were coming up behind the defendant, and they were following him for a while. He was going really slow for highway speeds, and you know, it was clearly lost and unfamiliar with the area. And so, you know, Trisha's husband waits for a legal passing lane to go around the defendant on the highway. As he's doing so, the defendant suddenly makes a left turn out of nowhere into the side of the Creech's truck, and they actually drive, like, they thought they were going to tip over entirely, but instead they drove over the hood of the defendant's truck and fishtailed for about 50 yards. And somehow Trisha's husband kept the truck from, you know, flipping over or going into a ditch. And she suffered injuries to her neck, her back, her shoulder, and her hip.
Okay. And who was the trial team from Ramos Law?
So it was me and Aaron Hogan trying this case. It was my first trial, first civil trial. And Aaron is technically my second chair, but I think she deserves the title of first chair on that case. I couldn't have gotten through it without her.
Yeah. And who were the paralegals?
Kim Vito and Katie Levis.
Oh, okay. 2 on it.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And this was your first civil jury trial?
Yes. Yeah.
Had you ever done any trials before that?
I had a little experience as an intern at the DA's office in El Paso. Did a couple DUI trials, but nothing as involved as, you know, a week-long civil personal injury trial. It was intense.
Yeah, yeah. And who took what between you and Aaron? Did you split up voir dire and opening and closing, or?
Yeah, Aaron did voir dire and closing. I did opening, and then we split the witnesses pretty 50-50. Okay. I directed our client, Trisha, and her granddaughter. Aaron took the husband, and then we split up the doctors evenly.
How many medical witnesses testified?
Boy, quite a few. I think 4 in total.
So I got to attend one of the days of trial, and you know, I don't know if you knew it was unique, but I felt it was a very unique situation where we had a very active judge, and the jury was dialed in, right? Yeah. Like I was watching the jury like, this is the most active listening jury I've ever seen. They're all sitting on the, you know, edge of their seats. They're asking questions. They're reacting very physically to the evidence. What was that like?
It was exciting because I remember going into it, I was worried, you know, about keeping them engaged. Usually that's the challenge, is keeping your jury from falling asleep, keeping your judge from falling asleep sometimes, I hear. But they were so attentive. They asked a question, like there were questions asked by the jury for every single witness. They took notes the entire time, and you know, it was really encouraging to see that people were taking, you know, their civic duty really seriously and really paying attention, and we're going to give it, an honest judgment.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I mean, it was so kind of informal that it was like some of the jurors were like literally kind of shouting almost back and forth to the judge if he said the question wrong or whatever. And the judge was kind of trying to interpret it. And I was like, what question are they asking?
They were having a good time.
That's really fun. Was it distracting to you at all?
No, no. I thought, if anything, it helped me stay engaged as well, because to know that they're paying attention, to every single word, every single argument. You want to be on your A game because they're watching. They're paying attention to how you're reacting to things. So you want to be very focused.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one of the things that when I was a younger attorney, I was living and dying with every jury question. You know what I mean? Especially after the close of evidence when they were deliberating. I've kind of learned a little bit. My strategy is it's very difficult to try to understand why they're asking a question. You don't really know what's behind it. So I typically try to maybe point a little bit at the evidence to what they're asking and try to answer those questions for them. Mm-hmm. But I don't try to like judge, am I winning or losing? What was your experience like?
Some questions were a little alarming, definitely. And yeah, it's hard to gauge the motivation at times behind it. But I think, what my takeaway is they're just thirsty for more information. They want to know more. They want us to ask more questions. They want the witnesses to open up more about this stuff. Sometimes they're asking questions that are good questions, but for, whatever rule of evidence in play, we can't answer it, we can't ask it. And they were very understanding. They didn't seem upset when the judge didn't ask questions that they wrote, which was good. I think they were just curious. So I tried to, especially the questions that concerned me, I was like, I'll just chalk it up to curiosity.
Yeah, that's funny. I got on a jury. I don't know if you knew that.
Really?
So I got on a jury and I went in with an agenda. And I was like, not an agenda, like I was answering all the questions correctly in voir dire, but I meant that I was asking very specific questions. And I would actually get mad when the judge was like, I don't think that's objectionable. But how many questions were they asking per witness, would you say?
3 to 5, 3 to 6.
3 to 6?
3 to 6.
Yeah, so it's the bench conference and go through them all.
Yeah.
Were you able to identify any of the jurors' handwriting and like you kind of knew who was asking what?
Yeah. Aaron and I there was a juror out there that we called Smiley Pants because he was smiling. I mean, he was just happy to be alive, this juror, and even more happy to be in trial with us. And he was the one asking most of the questions, but everybody was taking notes. It's just he was very curious. And so, and we could not really pin down exactly where his head was at just because of the range of questions that he was asking. So I decided to assume that he's mostly just curious, because I was too scared to assume, something negative from it.
Well, that's cool. And so Erin's a very experienced trial attorney. And, experience doesn't always turn into results, but she is an excellent trial attorney as well. How was it to be able to watch and learn kind of from her as you went through the trial?
Oh, it was awesome. Because Erin has such a bleeding heart, for these cases, a lot like me. And to see somebody with that kind of philosophy in this field was really inspiring, really helpful. She's she's awesome in trial, and it is no wonder, that she gets the results that she does, because I got to see it firsthand, and she's a heck of a trial attorney.
Yeah, and when you say or bleeding heart, you mean like compassion
Hmm.
and empathy and
Hmm.
never give up? Is that kind of?
Absolutely, she's a fighter. She's scrappy, which I really like about her.
That's cool. So, what were the medical damages in this case? What were the past medical bills and what were the future?
So Trisha was still actively treating at the time of trial. So up until that point, her past medical expenses were about 62,000.
Okay.
But she knew that she had a lot that would be going on in the future, including you know, a neck surgery that she really needed. And she, was genuinely worried about how she was going to be able to afford this continuing medical care. She's never really been the one in her family to need medical care. So it was really hard for them, really concerning for them, for their financial future, to figure out what they were going to do.
And so, $60,000 in past medical bills. About what were they offering before you went to trial?
Last pretrial offer was around 85,000.
Okay. And and then you did the whole trial. And how did you feel during deliberation? Were you like, I'd be a wreck in my first trial.
I don't know how anyone can feel confident waiting for a verdict. I mean, and we didn't really have a lot of jurors with great poker faces, but I was still worried, that they give us nothing. I mean, so it was nerve-wracking, absolutely. But at that point, it's out of your hands, and you've done everything that you can do, and you just have to hope that the truth, came to the surface, that it's as obvious to the jury as it is to you, and that they'll come back with something reasonable and fair.
So in this case, what did the jury decide to award?
So the jury awarded a little over 350,000. Most of that was for her past and future medical expenses.
Okay. And then after the trial, it's one of those things we, get to ask for interest and we get to ask for costs. So what was the final judgment?
Final judgment with interest and costs was 550,000.
Okay, very cool. And how did the client feel? Were they very happy? Were they, you never know.
I think I mostly characterize it as relief. I could just see the relief on her face. I think it's exhausting to be someone not accustomed with that world, of a courtroom, of a trial, and to sit there for a week and just be judged it was really hard on her and her family. And then to hear, that they came to, I think, a very reasoned verdict. She seemed very relieved.
This was a great case, and it's so cool that you're out there trying cases and getting into the courtroom. This was a fantastic result, and thank you for listening to this. This is concludes a verdict breakdown from Ramos Law. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Randy.